about those Detroit Lions, Casey, Jim, John, all the people out there that are watching on Facebook.com and, of course, YouTube.com. Guys, we are live every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. East Coast time, right here on the platform that you are listening to it on right now. But Dan Campbell, fourth down man himself. Dan Campbell, Mr. Risk It No Biscuit himself. Dan Campbell, Mr. I am going to live and die by this sword. They won last night. The Detroit Lions with a huge win over the Green Bay Packers on Thursday night. They now have an 80% chance to get the NFC top seed and to win the NFC North. Sorry, Laura, only 15% for your Minnesota Vikings. It is what it is. But in the process, the Lions went for it on fourth down 5 times. 4 of those 5 times, they got it on fourth down. 2 of them, they scored tutties. It was beautiful play card. It was so magical to see Jahmyr Gibbs run that out route into the in route. We call it a little Z route here on my level. And bada bing, bada boom, he was wide open. It was beautiful. And then old Tim, what was his face, wide open, sit there in the end zone. Oh, it was beautiful. They got beauty, right? But on the fourth down, it was 4th and 3? Ball on their own 30. So they had 60, 70 yards to go still. It was midway through the third quarter. Dan Campbell said, hold my beer. We're going to go for it again. Packers like, ha. We're going to stack the middle. That little quarterback sneak is gone. We're going to give it to Montgomery. Montgomery, you're going to get tackled for a 3-yard loss. That is when I posted, when I tweeted. I said, hey, Dan Campbell, you're going to lose the Super Bowl if you keep making plays like this. 80% of the comments were in agreements of me. Those other 20% of the comments said, hey, I was a hater, I was a homer, I was this, whatever, right? So I got to ask you guys this question. Will Dan Campbell cost the Detroit Lions a Super Bowl making calls like this if he does it in the playoffs and in the future? Meaning all of these fourth down play calls. Yes, he was 4 or 5 last night. Yes, he did score 2 tutties on fourth down last night. But the NFL average going for it on fourth down, you are only successful 51% of the time. In his coaching tenure, Dan Campbell is 66 for 125, which equals a 53% fourth down completion percentage, or it's a success rate of 53%. Now, I understand Dan Campbell has been coaching like this his whole career. When the Detroit Lions were 3-13, he was going for it on fourth down. When the Detroit Lions are 13-3, he's going to be going for it on fourth down. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. But we saw it last year. In big moments, in big games, he doesn't understand the no risk it, no biscuit. Like, hey, sometimes just take the points and walk away. Sometimes just punt the ball away and let your defense eat. Let's just be honest. The Detroit Lions defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL. I understand they're only ranked 18th overall. I understand that they're 15th in like red zone scoring. I understand that they are 13th in run stoppage. But my eyes tell me that the Detroit Lions defense is pretty freaking good. Nice little plug-and-play system. I was actually listening to, I do not forget the linebacker's coach's name, but it was the Detroit Lions linebacking coach. I was watching his presser talking to his people this morning. I believe it was, and he says the reason why we are so successful. He was talking to the Detroit News. He says the reason why we are so successful is because we don't treat people like backups. We don't treat people like third strings. We don't treat people like practice squad players. We treat like everybody is going to be starting that particular game. And that resonated with me because I am sitting here, not a state championship head coach yet again, not a college playoff bound coach yet again, because I do not coach my players like that. I do not prepare my whole team as if they're going to start on Friday or Saturday afternoons. Detroit Lions defense do. Aaron Glenn's does. That whole organization does. That is why they have the best defense in the NFL. Stats are lying to you here. The rankings are lying to you here. Those are all just talking points. Use your freaking eyes. They're a pretty good team. Pretty damn good defense. So why doesn't Dan Campbell trust that defense to go out there and win you games? Why doesn't Dan Campbell trust that defense to say, hey, we are on our own 30. We are 4th and 2. Yes, it is halfway through the third quarter. Why not punt it away? And on the flip side of that, they turned the ball over. The Green Bay Packers just drove the ball down to start the second half, pretty much untouched. Turn the ball over. They get the ball back 3 plays later. Bada bing, bada boom. 14 points in 4 minutes. 14 points in 4 minutes. Not only did you lose the lead, you gave the Green Bay Packers the momentum. You gave the Green Bay Packers the lead. And now all of a sudden your offense looked a little shell-shocked. I'm just going to call it the way I saw it. Looked a little shell-shocked. So the question is, guys, will Dan Campbell coaching like this cost him a Super Bowl at some point? Last year, it did. Last year, I truly believe that if he wouldn't have gone for it on 4th down versus San Francisco 49ers, they would have went to the Super Bowl last year, and they would have beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and there would have been no back-to-back. Let's just call it how it is. There would have been no back-to-back. There would have been no process of a three-peat because the Detroit Lions would have won last season if Dan Campbell wouldn't have gone on 4th down versus the San Francisco 49ers. Somebody needs to be in his ear saying, hey, I understand we go for it a lot. I understand we have a 53% success rate and the league average is 51. But we still have a 47% chance of not getting it. We still have a 47% chance of turning the ball over. We still have a 47% chance of giving the Green Bay Packers a go-ahead touchdown. If that happens in the playoffs, granted, the outcome is everything, right? The outcome is everything. If Dan Campbell would have got that 1st down on 4th and 3 on their own 30, we would have been saying, oh, he is great. Applaud him, right? But we're sitting here questioning. I am questioning either way. Why are you doing that? Me, as a younger coach, I was with you, Dan Campbell. I was going for it on 4th down every time because I did not trust my defense. You guys have built a great defense. Trust the defense. So I'm asking you guys in the comments below, is this risk it, no biscuit, die by the sword, whatever cliche you want to call it, is this going to come back and bite them in the ass in the playoffs yet again? Is this going to come back and bite them in the ass when they play the Buffalo Bills on next Sunday? Is this going to come back and bite them in the ass when they're playing the Green Bay Packers for the 3rd time in the divisional round, and this is the same situation? It's going to come back and bite them in the ass, and I'm going to say yes, it is. It is going to come back and bite you in the ass. Now, I do understand, I believe it was his press conference after the game, and honestly, he gave one of the best answers I have ever heard. Is like, look, this situation, I went for it. Maybe next time I won't. And honestly, I don't think he knows or he thinks it ahead or whatever. He just like, gut feeling, boom, let's go for it, right? Fuck it. And it is crazy to me. But what do you guys think? Is it going to cost him? James Strang says, Buck, you are a real Chiefs fan. I only know 2 real Chiefs fans other than you. All the other ones I have see are Brady jerseys hanging in their closet, a.k.a. Hoffy. Debunk the Junk says the pitch was a bad call. And Debunk the Junk, if we're referring to the 4th down call on the 30-yard line in the first part of the 3rd quarter, that was not a bad call. It was not a bad call because the Green Bay Packers had both A gaps filled and both B gaps filled, and they had linebackers stepping up. They were not going to let Jared Goff sneak it. They were not going to let Montgomery beat them with their legs, right? They were taking away that middle run. You are not going to beat us up the middle. No way, no how. That pitch, that handoff, whatever you want to call it, I think it was a pitch actually, right? That was the only call that would have been somewhat successful. What you could have done was pull to Jameis Winston. Fucking jump off sides. Come on, jump off sides, please do it. And then call timeout. That would have been the proper call. But the pitch was not a bad call. Jared Goff checked it to the correct play call. It's just the Green Bay Packers played better on that particular play. It is what it is. John says half of his closet likes Dallas too. I broke up with Dallas, John. I broke up with him. Broke up with him to him. Alpha Rob says it's going to cost him in 2 weeks. It is going to cost him when the Buffalo Bills come into town and whoop that ass, baby. I have that game circled, Alpha Rob. I am excited to watch that game. I'm excited to see if both teams are live up to the hype, right? Because it seems like every time we have this big hype, let's say, I don't know, Eagles versus Commanders, right? One team kind of shits the bed. Chiefs versus Bills. Chiefs kind of shit at the bed. Raiders versus Chiefs. Chiefs kind of shit the bed again, right? It just there always seems to be that one team that kind of doesn't get quite up. And honestly, with the Buffalo Bills having a playoff spot locked up, with the Detroit Lions having a playoff division locked up, we might just see a vanilla defense and vanilla offense. It might be a boring game. I'm just saying. John says, who won the game? Asking for a nation. The Detroit Lions won that game. 100%. The Detroit Lions won that game. They gave up a 10-point lead. Boom, boom, boom. In 4 minutes in the third quarter. They were kind of shell-shocked, like, oh, crap, what just happened? And I believe the offense punted the ball away the next play. But then after that offense was right back clicking, right back mojoing, and the defense did step up a little bit. They kind of were shell-shocked too, like, whoa, shit, what just happened? But they bounced right back. The Detroit Lions definitely won that game. Definitely won that game. John says, I thought you divorced him. I didn't. I broke up with the Dallas Cowboys. They out of here. David says, no, the team can execute. They'll be just fine. And I believe I was listening to the facility this morning about this. It is who was the NFL lineman on ESPN before it was cool to be a old NFL player to be on ESPN? Mark Schlereth, right? Mark Schlereth, I like what he says because I know that he is talking real to you, right? And he said, and I don't have the quote in front of me, I'm kind of going to paraphrase a little bit, but he said basically, if a team gets in their mind like, hey, we're going to go for it on fourth down more times than not, they are going to mentally prepare themselves to go for it on fourth down over and over and over again. And that just gives the offense a little bit of a mental edge because now the defense knows they have to execute perfectly on second and third down because if it's fourth and short, they're going to go for it, right? It is what it is. Casey says a lot of sportscasters are blaming his gling to cost him a playoff game off of his play calling. I think, me personally, I think when you get into nut crunch time, a lot of coaches change what they've done, right? So, for example, when I was a second-year head coach here at the high school, we were in a semi-state game. All year long, I'm going for it on fourth down. Boom, fuck it, fourth down. We were 11-0. All of a sudden, I'm like thinking in the back of my head, start second-guessing myself, oh, we better punt it. We haven't punted all season long. We practice punt one time a day on Thursdays in our walkthrough. Fumble the snap, goes over our head, and we lose the game. So they are going to execute, and they're going to be just fine. John says, tried it, made millions on being 4th and 5 out. What? Debunk the Junk says they're 25th in pass defense. It's the reason why their pass defense is so low is because when you jump out on the Jaguars 40-0, when you jump out on the Tennessee Titans 35-7, when you jump out on the what other team did they blow out? Like when you blow out those teams by 30, 40, 50 points, they're going to throw the ball a lot. Right? Didn't Will Levis have like 57 pass attempts against the Detroit Lions? When you don't rush the ball against them and it's all pass, your defensive pass yards are going to go down. So like I said, the stats are not telling the truth about the Detroit Lions defense. They have a pretty good defense. I'm just saying. John says, scorn a woman's mentality, though. What? I don't know what that means. Jay says, never change Dan Campbell. We love you as you are. Go for it, baby. So, Jay, let me ask you this question. You obviously are a diehard Detroit Lions fan. You are in tune with the inner workings of the Detroit Lions. You are an insider. You are a writer. You do a lot with the Detroit Lions. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but you seem to have a pulse on this team. Now, I understand that the fair weather fans, right? Call it what you want, but the fair weather fans, if Dan Campbell, let's say this. Let's put this scenario out there. It is 4th and 2. 4th and 2 in the divisional playoff game. You are playing the Green Bay Packers. You are on your own 40-yard line in the start of the third quarter. You are up 21-7. You go for it. The Green Bay Packers stuff it. They go down and they get a touchdown the very next play. It is 21-14. And then all of a sudden, the Green Bay Packers start boom, 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 right? Run up the scoring. 35-21 is the final. All pointed to that 1 4th down play. All pointed to why didn't you just punt it away? Why don't you try to draw them offsides? Why do you know this? Do you think then the risk it, no biscuit Dan Campbell starts getting a reality check? Do you think then the fans start to kind of turn their heads and like, why didn't you do it, bud? Why didn't you do it? I mean, obviously here on Monday, on Man Hour, we're going to be like, this is why it happened. I told you this, right? I told you it was going to happen. The no risk it, no biscuit, I told you so, right? And I'm going to make sure you know it, that I told you so. Do you then start to say, maybe you shouldn't go for it as often as you should? Maybe we should start looking at the gut feeling a little bit. Maybe your gut's just a little bit off. I'm just saying. I'm just speaking from experience, right? Jay says, not about the trust. If you can win it, then go for it. True. John says, you all witnessing the Kansas City shake because they're scared. What are we scared of? Scared of not making it to the Super Bowl again? James Frank says he does trust them. He went for it on their own 30. Dan Campbell's just a huge pair of nuts. You can have the biggest nuts in the world, but sometimes, James, you got to have a little bit of common sense. Sometimes you got to look at it like, man, it is 4th and 3. We do have a 10-point lead. We are on our own 30-yard line. Common sense tell me maybe we should just play to live another day. Maybe he can have the biggest nuts in the world. He probably does. I wouldn't have called it. I'm just saying. I would have shit down my leg like, punt it away. Defense, do your thing. Maybe he's just not all there in the head case. You all complain about me having CTE and concussion and all this other stuff. Maybe, just maybe, he has the same thing. I'm just saying. Debunk the Junk One says because Love started carving up that secondary in the fourth quarter. He's a good quarterback, just sucked in the first half. That does not question the 4th down play in the third quarter. I don't care if Jordan Love was carving up stuff all game. Still had at that point was a 4-point lead, right? Why go for it? I don't know. But yeah, Jordan Love did have a pretty decent second half, and that's ultimately why they went for it on 4th and 1, right? They didn't want Jordan Love to have 30-some-odd seconds left, but it is what it is. Casey says, there is a team in the league that you can't just play safe with 1-point lead. They're playing aggressive not to leave room for the moments when they have to play the Bills or the Chiefs in 13 seconds, for example. True. Josh Olsen says, points allowed on the defense is only a metric that matters. Chargers are number 1. Eagles are number 2. Lions are number 3. Vikings are number 4. Steelers and Chiefs and Broncos are in the top 10 points allowed on defense. Josh, you are correct to an extent, right? You can make every stat fit your narrative, right? That's what, do you guys remember, I was probably 12 or 13, and there was a show on ESPN called Numbers Never Lie. So they would bring up the stats and say, numbers never lie, but then I believe it was Callan Callherd, or however you say his name, he would take that stats and he would spin it around and fit his narrative, right? I love that show. I don't ever know why it didn't last very, very, very long, but the numbers do lie to you. You can make every number fit your narrative, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. If I wanted to talk down on the Detroit Lions, I would bring up, was it Debunk the Junk 1? I would take his 25th passing yard stat. They're ranked 25th in passing. They're obviously can't stop the pass. Well, when teams pass 60, 50, 50, 60 times on you, they're going to get some yardage, right? It just, numbers lie to you. But I do agree with you to an extent that points allowed on defense is a metric that you can really measure. I will give you that. Mark D says, yes, it's going to bite them in the ass. It is. John says he turned you into a hater. Who turned me into a hater? This is all me, baby. Live, raw, uncut. Jonas Howard, what's up, man? He says Detroit live or die with the gambler Dan Campbell. It will not cost him in the playoffs this season. But what if it does? Like, that's the real question. Like, people keep saying, yeah, it won't. Yeah, it won't. Yeah, it won't. But what if it does? What if it does cost him? That's the big question. Laura Johnson says, yes, possibly because other teams are catching on to his play styling, I believe. He plays smart, but not smart. I mean, there are only so many fourth down plays you have in your playbook. There's only so many two-point conversions plays you have in your playbook, right? When I prepare for a football week, on Monday, I bring to the table 10 fourth down plays and 5 two-point conversion plays. On Tuesday, that normally gets whittled down to about 5 on each side. Come Wednesday, we're down to about our 4 fourth down plays and our 2 or 3 two-point conversion plays. On Thursday, we're executing those plays, making sure we're doing it perfectly, right? The NFL is probably the same way. They probably have 50 fourth down plays and 30 two-point plays, but they narrow it down. They chop it from 50 to 25 to 10 to 15 to like, hey, here's our 5 plays that we have for two-point conversions this week. Let's execute it. Let's get it right. I mean, I'm not trying to call anybody dumb, ignorant, retarded, whatever. I used to do that way back in the day, but I have turned over the new leaf, and I've been trying to nip that in the butt in our comment section. Like, don't be calling people retarded. That's just dumb, right? Everybody's educated in their own mind. I can start talking computer shit to you guys here, and 90% of the people here would be like, "Oh, I bet you're ignorant." Well, Dan Campbell is a good coach. He's a good motivator. I don't know who calls the offensive plays. I'm assuming it's Ben Johnson that calls the plays, and Dan Campbell is just the overall seer, the overall let's go for it. Yes, I like that. But yes, you can only have so many plays. I think that's what we're kind of get, right? Mark D says, no, I thought that was during the playoff game last year. I don't know what you guys are talking about. James Frank says, that's going to be a great day in football. Saquon run the ball over Pittsburgh all day long. Slow it down, baby. John says, quick clinging your pearls to Campbell's Coach of the Year. We talked about Coach of the Year. And I said Dan Campbell probably will not get it because people expected the Detroit Lions to be good. He is probably not going to get it because they expected him to win the North. They expected them to make it to the Super Bowl. They expected them to be maybe not 12-1, right? But 10-3 or whatever. They expected them to be there. There's a different coach out there that's going to win Coach of the Year. Mike Tomlin is probably going to win Coach of the Year. Let's just be honest. Or freaking Sean Payton. Nobody expecting them to be there at all. Let's just be honest. James is like, I dislike Cow Turd. Listen, back then, he was more like trolling, right? He was a troll before trolls were troll. I'm just saying. Casey says, has anyone found out about the Bears timeout? I believe they found it on Facebook Marketplace. I shared your post, Casey. It was freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. But guys, that is the question. Will Dan Campbell blow the Super Bowl chances for the Detroit Lions by a fourth down call? But there's another team that was on the